Hello, Christian here. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And I know I say this at every episode, but today's guest is absolutely amazing. The only thing I need to say is the Howard Stern of the restaurant industry. You guys get to meet him right after this. Hello again. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And I'm on the day with a legend. He is the Canada's restaurant guy. If you guys ever heard of him, he's not just Canada's restaurant guy. He's pioneering marketing strategies, which he uses to transform leadership. He's been in this industry for 34 years now, and he still hasn't run south, to the lower 48 because I think we have it going on. He's amazing in what he does, and he's just an amazing human being. And I had the opportunity to meet him a few months ago. And as I heard him speak and the way he looks at the industry, we had to crown him the Howard Stern of the restaurant industry. Welcome, Jay Ashton.
I'm trying to be so proper. Thank you.
So, Jay, first off, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks for dressing warm. I know it's cold up in Canada. And
you know what? It's so cold up here that you're coming up here, so I'm trying to. I hope you like cocoa.
We do, especially if it's dipped in something. We really like cocoa.
I hope you like cocoa. They're a national drink up here.
So Jay, if you wouldn't mind, give our audience a little bit of glimpse on who you are, why you became Canada's restaurant guy, and what you're gonna do as the king and Howard Stern of the restaurant industry.
Well, I'm going to start a knitting group. No, it is. So I think I've been in the industry 34 years. I really have been to every corner of this country over and over again. Meaning working with restaurants, developing programs for people. I've been I don't know how many times I've been back and forth over this country. So it was someone that said this many, many years ago. Hey, you're Canada's restaurant guy. And I was like, hey, that sounds cool. So let's use that. But it's really something that, I take serious sometimes, but I'm also proud to be able to provide people stories about the industry and also provide solutions and ideas and creative thoughts, make us think differently as the Steve Jobs of the world will say. So that's what I do. I have a show as well. We don't call it a podcast, but we have a show, and I've been doing that since 2020.
That's amazing.
Time, and we've probably interviewed maybe close to 1,500 people now.
Wow, that's amazing. And how did you start? Talk to our viewers and listeners a little bit more about that. So how did the podcast start? And also, I know your legal team asked us to put your legal team told us to put the disclaimer that this is not a podcast.
So bad. So bad. So we started on May 14th, 2020. I know the date because it was like, what do you mean this podcast thing? Like, right? Like, who wants to do podcasting? I was doing webinars. We were doing webinars every month. And the last webinar we had on, we actually had Paul Barron on. And I remember it because it was the last one. And then COVID hit and all those ugly things, those stories. And then we started on May 14th. I said, yeah, let's try this. So we're literally in my garage, and we had I don't know what kind of mic we had. If we had a mic, we had a mic. We probably had these weird looking things. And then we had the lights, clamped lights that were for not what they're supposed to do, but they were like lights out there. And then I don't know what else we had for a camera, whatever. Anyways, we had this makeshift studio thing in my garage, and then people, we did that for months and months. And through the summer, because it's not always too cold here, is that we had the Amazon guy would drive by and stop. He's like, what's with all the lights? And then, so if you listen to our first shows, you can actually hear the dump truck backing up, or the beep, 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 or you'd have the mailman would stop by, and you could hear them talking on the radio, like, what are you guys doing? What's with all the lights? What are you filming here? Right? Kind of thing. So We did that for a long time, and then we just evolved enough. We've done, like I said, about 1,500 shows. We've interviewed so many people, and we're not even like you can't even get through the list of people. Like you think you run out for a second, pause for half a second because you don't. There's so many people you get to meet and to hear their story, get to interact with them. And that's what I've been doing for 4 years, almost 5 years. And yeah,
That's amazing. So we are 9 months into it. We have about 150 episodes out, and some days we shoot 3 a day. And I was like, how did that guy find the time to do 2,000 of them? And not only that, for us, it's one of the things we try to do is if there's something we interested in, if there's a strategy, a techniques, or a tool they have, we want to bring them on because to live up to our name, the Disruptive Chef, so we can disrupt the thinking of the chefs. And I felt like at the about 100 episodes, who else are we going to have? And then as we started, going out there and looking for some new people to bring to our audience, I was amazed at how many amazing people are out there, number one. Number two
oh
is
yeah,
how many nobody ever heard of. They are the best kept secret in the industry, and they're amazingly good in what they do. So what is your strategy? How do you bring new talent onto the show and not to make it boring for your listeners?
we pay them lots. No, um, we we pay them to say the right things. Um, honestly, the strategy is, I don't know if people like. First of all, our strategy is probably pretty weak, but we look at people that are interesting. First of all, because
Mhm.
not as much as there's a lot of people that are talking, not a lot of people are good storytellers or good on the mic or in front of the camera.
Yeah,
Like it's just the reality. Like some
yeah, yeah,
people are. And I've had many, and today I'll tell, like I did on Sean's show, I'll tell everyone what happened to one later on. Remind me to tell you that story. But I look at more about what they can bring to our industry, like what's the gift that they give us,
yeah, yeah.
and what's the knowledge that they can present to us. So there's a lot of things I don't do now. We ran out the fact that I can't tell restaurants to do inventory anymore, or that your P&L or all these things over and over again, or you have problems with your labor. We've told that story 40 million times. I'm good. So we don't really look for that anymore. We look for I love interviewing chefs. I love interviewing restaurant owners, people that are in the field, like dealing with the day-to-day world of our industry. I absolutely love that. It's one of my favorite. I get
Yeah.
excited when I get to interview a chef or a restaurateur. I look for that. That it's as simple as it is. I look. I said, "Are you like? Did they look interesting? What's their background? Have they ran restaurants? Are they in the? Are they couch solvers, or are they people that lived it and breathed it and have a good background behind the story?" That's it. Honestly, we look at it for that way. I look at the guests that we have. We have a lot of companies now that reach out and give us guests nonstop, which thank you for them. They're constantly sending us, like you say, you don't know, like you might find someone who's like, who's this? And then you look them up, I'm like, wow, are they interesting? Are they cool?
Yeah.
We had a show last night. We did on our show, Dr. Jeff, incredible coach, restaurant. He's not necessarily a restaurant coach, but he works with small businesses. But his coaching knowledge, and to bring that knowledge into our industry, was gold. It was incredible conversation. So there was also surprises.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
also get surprises too, right?
I love that. So one of the not just things, but one of the beliefs you and I have is that more chefs need to do what we do. And
Yes.
for me, I had a really good friend who said to me, Christian, you need to do this 3 years ago. And for me,
Yes.
this was a learning curve because it says I hate the way I sound on
So
on this.
I can't stand it. I can't stand myself.
I don't I don't like the way I look, and
I know I look like I got bleached.
and then so for me, what my biggest problem was not starting was me. I was my biggest problem. And then Sean Walchef came to me and said, Christian, I challenge you to do it. And he says, not only to do it, I want you to do 50 in the next 90 days. Because if you do 50, he says, you will see you're getting better at it. I did my very first one, and maybe you can talk about your very first one besides hearing the truck backing up. We gotten ready, we don't have the setup we have now, but the sound. I don't know what it was. High pitch. It was the sound just didn't work. Then the other guy's computer broke, and he came back on, and we were live at the time. He came back on a phone, and you kind of seen his nostrils from the bottom. It was just wow. It was rough. And then my team said, "How did it go?" I was like, "It was rough." Okay, one of the things we say, how can we make it better? So the next day we were like, we need something different. And then we eventually stopped doing live, and we record and we just push it out on Mondays and Thursdays. And then at the height, we pushed out 7 pieces of content a week. I'm still not the Jay Ashton. I feel like I'm getting better at it. I'm still not as good as you. So if I need some inspiration, because I hate you so much because you're so good at it. So I log into your late night show, and I'm there 15 minutes. I was like, I just can't stand this guy. I hate him so much. He's so good. He's so good. And then I learned something from you. Come back and try to make it better. But talk to us a little bit. How was your first go around? Was there ever a period? Because for me, it was episode number 14, by the way. I said, we really stink at this. I'm not good at this. You could see I was reading questions after then, because I was
Yeah.
I'm done of embarrassing myself. For they show them the whole,
Well, so I take do you remember Larry King?
Yeah.
Do you remember Larry King? So Larry King used to freestyle his guests. He never once had notes or anything on his guests. And trust me, I've had guests where you have to have notes. You have to have your notes.
Yeah.
And I used to have a show rundown that I'd have beside me here, and in the studio, in the other studio, I would have it written out, and here's what we're going to talk about. And the podcast, because I also do other podcasts, not just my own show. So the one I did for Restaurants Canada, we had to outline everything. It had to be, over and over again, clear and make, green light and everything. So today I do a lot of guests will reach out like, what's the questions? I'm like, we're just going to freestyle. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about you. It's all about you. Like that's the common line I always use. It's always about you. It's not about me. It's not about us. It's all about you and what you do and what you contribute to our industry. And really from that point on, I don't want questions in a sense preset, because you can, as you get better at podcasting, I find, and this is the difference. I can't stand radio because it's a sad world. But here's the thing. When you get good enough, and oh God, I'm going to give you all my secrets. Oprah was really good at this. So if you watch the old Oprah shows, she could navigate a conversation like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
She could take you on, she could take that guest and she could get anything out of them, or she could navigate the conversation so it wasn't bumpy for them or the guests feel comfortable. And that's one of the things that I've been told that I do well at. And there's many things I don't, but is I make the guests feel comfortable. And that's the first thing is to do in the first 5 minutes is making them comfortable. So with my first show that I did back in the day, I didn't know these things, right? I didn't know. I just talked, and it was like, okay, what do you do? Or a lot of people will pull it back because the only thing we can reference like a podcast is radio. So we would be like, well, welcome to the blah, 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 like, what's the weather today? Like we were just like a radio station. And I said, like radio's dying. Do we want to listen to like a radio station? So I like today we do a little bit of pre-work. I do a little bit of pre-work. Sometimes I don't, and it's freestyling because you get good enough, you can ask the right questions. And if you have the general notes of who they are, you can navigate to get them to open up, and then you can control it. There's key wording through your webinar or your podcast that you do to either get more words out of it or out of them, or you can make them feel comfortable. Here's some of my tricks. I'm going to give you some of my tricks. Christian, I'll give you some of them. So one of the key things is to laugh throughout your show. Make sure laughter is very key because it releases dopamine. So it makes people want to stay longer listening to your show. I think it's important to have a lot of open-ended questions. I think it's also important to not only get the subject, but to pull out notes or like points of the person you're interviewing. So tell me more about yourself, not just your company or your program, but get more about yourself. And I think that's because we always want to know more about them. Like what do they do on a Saturday? Like, what do you do? Where do you eat all the time? Or what's your favorite food? Or, what's your memory of yours, right? Like that you've had recently that changed your world, or those
Mhm.
kind of things are important to because it becomes unique. I also have a huge amount of in my brain when I'm doing shows, a huge amount of part of my brain of what would I be listening to this for 30
Okay.
minutes or an hour? Like I have that constantly because I have a short attention span. And if I can keep myself entertained, and that's why when we brought on Dominic in December last year as our co-host, if you watch me and him together, it's just
I know
beautiful
he's amazing.
because
Yeah.
he's so awesome. But we both know now what to say and how we can get each other. Like sometimes we have to actually hurry up because we go back and forth and we have a guest in the green room waiting for us to bring them into the show. Is that we'll sit there for like for 5 minutes and be like, oh yeah, we should probably bring our guest in because we'll be bickering at each other. But I think that's key for me because I did probably 1,000 solo and with a guest in the show.
Yeah.
When you have a co-host, I absolutely love it. I love having a co-host. It gives you time to process, like because I take time on the processing of thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we bounce things off of each other. And he has his isms, and so do I. And he's always looking up at the ceiling when he asks a question, and his questions are always 10 minutes long. And he knows kind of things. So a lot of people don't know this. So I'll give you a story. I'll tell you another story. So this was probably about 3 years ago when we just probably about a year and a half into it. I was in my other studio, and we had like a Red Bull fridge and a Pepsi
Yeah.
fridge and a Red Bull fridge. It was warm in there. We're warm in there, and I actually know who it was. And I was doing a lot of cooking shows and interviewing chefs and getting to cook products up for me. And I would ask them questions about the products and dishes and like what's their technique and where did they learn to cook that. Well, this one chef we had on the show, he was awesome, like incredibly dedicated, and he thought he was on the first movie cooking show that was going to be 2 hours long. And he had to cook like every dish the guy has ever cooked in his life. Like it was so long. It
Yeah.
was good, but it was just like we could have made a 5-part series. It was so long. I fell asleep. I nodded off. I I nodded off. I have to go back and see if I can find it because I nodded off, and someone said to me in a show, and I mentioned this one Sean's show. Someone said, "Well, how did you know that you nodded off?" Because they had to wake me. My guests had to wake me because I went silent for a long time, and I hear this, "Hey Jay, you there still?" They thought my mic went down or
Oh,
something, but it was me
best.
because it was one of those days, right? But because I was doing, to your point,
Oh my goodness.
we were doing 3 shows a day,
I love that.
and then we got to 2 shows, and then we were doing, like today we do. Typically, right now we're running about 4 to 5 a week.
Hmm.
Like we sometimes do three. It depends on the summer. Sometimes we do three. When it gets cold again, we'll probably do 5 a week, but we're doing 3 to 4 a week now. And then
Yeah.
like next week we have 6. So we'll do
Awesome.
one. We'll do a recording and then we'll play it again because we want to be a late night weekly daily show. So that's what we do.
So, Jay, talk to us a little bit more about your podcasting. So you gotten into, doing 1,000 shows, which I think is amazing. You had some really, amazing clients out there. And there's one thing I find now with doing 150 shows. There's connections you built. There's a few people you say, hey, they are absolutely amazing. I need to find a way to partner with them. Has that come up to you? Is there somebody you felt you're really strong about partnering with, or somebody you're pursuing to do an additional partnership? What has the podcast created for you, and what has it done for Jay Ashton?
Great question. I think when you look at what it's done is it's allowed me to meet so many people, like just enormous amount of people I would have never met before, and have conversations because you get to know them personally, you get to kind of know them for a little bit. And I love that. I love getting to know who they are and their story behind them. And I think that's important. So it's allowed me to do that. Now, I don't do sponsors and I don't do deals. I have been approached numerous times And maybe one day we will, but right now it's
Yeah.
not an interest of what we do. But and it's also a point is like we just can't do that right now. So it's something that maybe down the road, like it's not I don't want it to be where we become a commercial
Yeah. Yeah.
all the
I love that.
time. And
Yeah.
like luckily we both have day jobs and we don't need to do it from a financial side, but it's where a lot of people do get the opportunity to do that, and that's great. I think my points on what I hear, like I listen to a lot of podcasts as well. Not only do them, I do a lot, listen to a lot. I listen to the ones that keep it like it doesn't you can tell the ones that kind of I wouldn't say sell out's the right word, but they
Yeah.
really get they get a taste of the money probably. And you can tell because every 3 minutes there's a commercial, and then the commercials are and we know that there's the skip through on a podcast commercial is very minimal. Like most people don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But when you hear like a phenomenal conversation with someone, and then it's, hey, Pampers diapers or this and that, and it's like, ah, or like it's, have you tried this cream? Like it's it's not. It kind of ruins the podcast in a way that it doesn't clarify it. So I recommend people that are getting into this and want to make money at it, and all the best to you. I would say my recommendation is make sure you partner with people that are true to your brand, like connect to
Mhm.
your brand, that you're not just doing it to make the money. And I think you might have said this to me as well, and many people have, is do it not because of the money, but do it because you love to do it.
I agree, and like I said, we are far behind you, and we were already approached by a company to do something, and has nothing to do what we do. I'm not sure if that product is even as good as some of the people saying. So I really haven't done anything yet with that. But for me, we want to do this because we want to help chefs find their way in an industry which is a very fragile industry, and
Yeah.
COVID has shown us this. And we want chefs to know that they have transferable skills, and that's for me the bottom line. And we try to, some guests are kind of serious. We have a few, and we just kind of go through and great content. And then we have some of them, where you just you look, we're trying to stay within a half hour, things, and you'd be going 45 minutes. I don't want to end. I don't want to end because this conversation is good. So where's your do's and don'ts come in? Doing 2,000 shows as you did. What is your do's and don'ts? Not just advice to somebody starting out. If you would have an opportunity, would you do some of it over? And what are some nuggets you could tell or share with our audience? Because I know there's 5, 6 guys listening right now, which will be amazingly good in doing this, and they should do it because they have great experience, they have good content. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Do's and don'ts. So do's are just do it. is I have it here from Michelle, which I think you've had on her show.
Yep.
You can't use the word try it. I
Yep.
can't try or can't. You just got to do it. And I think when you look at doing this kind of stuff and doing shows, I think the biggest thing when you look at the to-dos is just do it. More is better than not enough. And I think you need to make sure you're pure. Like, do not be someone else. Don't do it. Like, don't chase the money at the beginning. Do it for the right reasons,
Yep.
because you will find people run out of the steam on it because I think they realize that it's a lot of work. And
Yeah, it
I
is.
think that is the to do. Like, continue at it. If you're going to commit to doing a show, and I've got hundreds of people, can you help me with the podcast or this? I say, okay, are you committed? Are you committed every week for the next 3 years to do that? Because it takes about 3 to 5, I would say probably 4 to 5 to really see it take shape. And we're
Yeah.
just getting into that back end. So I can see the back when people told me that, you can see the back end because they come to you then. Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to go out there chasing guests. They come to you. And which is both. Like, and we still reach out once in a while. So I'll reach out to someone I see that's really cool and say, hey, would you love to have me on the show? But you have to commit to that. And it's a long journey. And the part on that is you don't need to be perfect but I think my saying is imperfection is perfection, is that You have to allow your mics to screw up, your co-host to go to the bathroom when he did once, like, or, um, something happens and your internet goes down and you come back and you still record, like all these things. Allow it because it's the truth. It's the trueness. We're not trying to be, and there's another, don't be radio.
Yeah.
Leave radio where radio is. Be true, be clear, do different stuff, engage, bring tons of people on the show, bring one person, make sure you do it by yourself, and make sure you always do it with a guest or co-host. Change it up. Don't always stick to your same structure. And for the restaurant podcast, please, enough telling people that their restaurant is screwed, enough with the labor problems, enough with the inventory, and you should be doing this. I think they get it. Like we've told them 45 billion times. And all I see on LinkedIn all the time is the same story over and over. Let's interview some. What they should be doing? Well, they should be counting their inventory or their P&L or my favorite is they'll use the word prime cost. Like it's prime cost. It's like, oh, geez. Like how many times? So I know everyone wants to help them, but please, the content, because the biggest thing I took 2 days ago, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, we had a guest on our show too. And he said, and I wrote it down, is that you want to interrupt the pattern. Okay. And when you do that, then people engage more. So you always got an interruption of a pattern meaning like I'll wear bright colored pants to events and people are like, wow, Jay sticks out. Yeah, I did it for a reason. It's not because I like wearing bright yellow pants. Those kind of things. So I think it's important to look at that interruption. How are you interrupting? There is, what is it, like how many hundreds of millions of podcasts out there? Why would someone in a restaurant that's busy dealing with issues and everything else want to listen to someone telling them what they need to do?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to tell people, I don't want to listen to people that tell me what I need to be doing all the time because I'm failing in my business. Hi. So I think you have to think about the end user a lot. But I tell you, I love a lot of the people's intent.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people forget the end listener and that's the customer, right? Like, what are they doing? Why would they listen to your show? What are they going to get out of it? That's why we do an edutainment style. That's what we do, is we blend entertainment and education together in the content that we produce. So when we have a serious conversation about, coaching or we had an inventory or a management system on the other night, but we laughed so hard because me and my co-host kept texting me words to say that I couldn't say. And I was trying not to laugh. And it was the funniest thing. So yesterday, that was the Australian guy, and he says, "Can you say shrimp on a Barbie?" And he texted me that, and I'm supposed to say that during the show. So if you watch the show, I am laughing so hard, trying not to, because the guest doesn't know, and I feel bad, but we're having fun, right? Like, and I think that is where people are attracted to that. And
yeah,
there's enough dry podcasts. I've listened to a lot of them. There's enough dry ones out there. I think our industry needs more humor and a laugh or two.
Love that. Thanks for sharing that. So let's pivot a little bit. So 2,000 episodes, you doing some amazing stuff out there. Help our listeners to get a little bit of glimpse on behind the scenes. What is Jay Ashton working on Jay Ashton? What is Jay Ashton working on Canada's Restaurant Guy? And what else are you working on over the next 6 months? So give people a little bit of glimpse on where you have your focus and what you're trying to get out there to the marketplace.
Well, some things I can't tell you quite yet, but we're working on really right now is I'm building a coaching program for the company I work for right now.
Yeah.
Is that we're building a phenomenal coaching. We built it already. It's being launched right now and coaching 2 massive locations right now on their business. I'm starting to learn more about coaching and the mindset behind coaching and how do you do that in a company as a valued service. So I'm learning that right now, and I have 26 classes I'm teaching
That's
coming up
awesome.
this fall. On one's on marketing and 10xing your marketing in your restaurant, and then the other one is really about tidying up your business in your restaurant and making it more profitable, and also to drive more sales. So I taught at a college 1 or 2 semesters in Toronto. It's like going back to school is what I'm building right now, and for hopefully the customers and to our restaurateurs, the ability to help them, but in a coaching mindset and not to consult as much. But
Yeah.
apparently you do a little bit of that, but it's mostly around the coaching mindset. So that's what I'm working on right now. Like I said, we've got a huge amount of classes coming up right now that are phenomenal. It's really cool. And then to learn and to navigate and to look at a brand that we're introducing, and how do we make it so it does help, not just the talk. Like talk's cheap, but it actually does. So it's a lot of hands-on. And then how do you make it hands-on in a virtual setting? And how do you get them to take something away, or how do you apply it? What's the homework look like? What's the activities look like during the meetings? So I'm working on that, and then I'm hitting the road soon, a couple weeks, and then I'm gone for like 3 months on the road,
Wow.
doing so many shows. So I'm doing 2 presentations, similar topics around marketing and also restaurant business as well. So it is, yeah. There's lots, and then we have more shows than I could probably even dream of coming up on our late night show, and then I do an AM morning show on Wednesdays on restaurant marketing, and it's just me. So that's one of the things that they say is that when you do shows with other people, you need to also include one show with yourself. So every
Mhm.
Wednesday morning, I get on and talk about restaurant marketing with the notion of using current topics. So I'm working on that right now, and then this fall, because I don't have enough on my plate, I'm launching the first NHL and restaurant podcast. Not a podcast, is we're launching that, where I'm going to get 3 people for every show once a week, and we're going to watch a hockey game. The viewers
Mhm.
won't see it, but we're going to watch it with a chef, and the chef's going to prepare meals while we watch a hockey game. But we get to watch it, and people watch us watching it. And then we're going to do a commentary of the hockey game, and then talk about food and the industry and restaurants and everything else. And then a chef's going to present food while we're watching a hockey game. So I don't know if you've seen 3 people that know little about hockey, and a chef in an NHL game that you don't get to see because we can't do that. That is going to happen. This, I think it's October 4th is what we're planning. So that's either a really good train wreck or a really good idea. We don't know yet, but that's what I'm working on.
Awesome, awesome. And then also another message from our sponsor below, America's Restaurant Guy, a show coming to another podcast near you. So thank you to our sponsor,
So
America's Restaurant Guy. Um,
that was funny, by the way. That was funny.
so
I
the
remember.
truth be told, I keep telling Jay he's Canada's restaurant guy. Okay, we have more people living in California than he has in all of Canada. So I keep telling him he needs to become America's restaurant guy. So so
I
because he
know,
was
but you
kind of
guys get a little stickly when you take the title and you're not from there.
so
like, like
I
respect.
get it. He's not American, so it's tough. So I think he needs to partner with an Austrian, and then we are America's restaurant guys together. And
Nice. We'll plural it. You know what's interesting? I don't know if I ever told you my Al Capone story.
no.
Okay, so I'll tell you this. Here's another story. I got lots of stories. We'll keep going on. We can go all night. This will be a 5-part show. So I say that because you think about America, because I was in Chicago. I was doing podcast for the National Restaurant Association in Chicago in May, and I had a blast down there. It was incredible. Um, Anyways, I was going to say, because American, I do have ties a little bit to the United States through my grandpa. So
Mm.
So I know, well, you're coming to Montreal, so you kind of have an idea.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you look at where Chicago is on a map and you see Chicago, now you take a ruler and you take Chicago to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, which is in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Like there's nothing around there other than cities and farmland and ranches. But if you take a line and a ruler and you go from Chicago all the way up to Moose Jaw, you'll see a train route. Okay.
Yeah.
Back in those days, back in the 30s, 30s, 40s, and stuff like that, people traveled by train, right? Like people went away and they took the train and they'd go somewhere. So Moose Jaw was Al Capone's hideout. So when the heat got on in Chicago really bad, and things were going on and people were coming at him, he would hop on a train with his boys and go to Moose Jaw. So in Moose Jaw, I know, look it up, it's cool. Moose Jaw, I think it was like 1996, 7 maybe 94, isn't there 90 sometime? They found these tunnels under the city of Moose Jaw that were Al Capone's hideout tunnels.
Wow, that's cool.
And they also had so the railroad that was built through Canada, there was a lot of Oriental and Asian people that were unfortunately just lived a horrible lifestyle to be able to build this beautiful railroad across our country. There was an underground, like a place where they brought in a lot of people from immigrants, and they did laundry down there. It was like an underground laundromat or something like that. And they did all these things. Anyways, it was kind of close to Al Capone's tunnels. So anyways, under the city of Moose Jaw was all these hideouts, and he had all his whiskey and all his different booze down there were being made in Moose Jaw. Like it's look it up. It's incredible.
No idea. This is an amazing story.
So all this amazing stuff. So Al Capone would go from Chicago, go to Moose Jaw, hang out there. Well, apparently the head police guy for Moose Jaw was like in cahoots with Capone and everything else, turned his eye at everything that would go bad.
Yeah.
So anyways, above his tunnels was a restaurant. And I don't know what it was called back then. It might have been called the Oriental. It was an Asian restaurant. And my grandma worked there. My grandma ran that restaurant as a young kid. So she was probably in her teens. And she used to say that she would serve the gangsters and Al Capone because they had to eat. And they weren't going, there were no McDonald's and stores around. They would have to eat from the restaurant that was above their tunnels. Yeah. So my grandma, for years, and she died in 1996, I think it was, she was telling us years. So as a young kid, she would tell these stories about the Al Capone and the gangsters and everything else. We thought that she was kind of loopy. We didn't believe her because it's so hard to believe until you find out. So she had passed, and then we found out these tunnels, and we were all like, "Oh shit, Grandma wasn't full of it. Like she was telling the truth." And then my grandpa, which he died in 1975, he was a part of the boys running rum into the United States from Canada. He was a rum runner. Because South Moose Jaw, I think it's called the Badlands. It's very today it's still the same as it was probably in the 30s and 40s. It was like desolate. Like there was nothing there. There's nothing there. So he was transporting stuff back and forth in his truck. And his truck looks like something that you would see in an Al Capone movie, like his old truck and stuff, right? And he looked like Indiana Jones. Like it was crazy, the hat and everything else. And anyways, so we grew up knowing this, and then we always couldn't figure out where all this money would come from that he would have, right? Because no one had money in the 30s, right? No one had any money, right? And he had all this money, so we couldn't figure this thing out. So my grandpa was a rum runner with Al Capone in Saskatchewan. Isn't that crazy? Like that is so crazy. So it's hard to believe, but like literally, so when we go back, and then back in those days, and then maybe it's different down in the United States and Canada, but back in those, one of the main professions was that you also ran a cab stand or a taxi stand or whatever they were called. Well, my grandpa's brother or brother-in-law owned the cab stand, I guess they called it, or a station, whatever. It was also above those tunnels. And today it's like an entrance. But my mom said that I used to go up the stairs to this cab place, right? So I'm like, holy cow. So we have a very integrated kind of weird story from those days. But and I always say is like when I did presentations across there, I'd start off my keynotes with, "Hey, my grandpa used to run rum with Al Capone." And tension, everyone be like, "What?" Right? So it's true, and very interesting that my grandpa was running a restaurant. Like he could have been running a shoe store or whatever, and all of a sudden it's like a restaurant. And what do I get to do, right?
Yeah.
So there's my tie to the United States.
I love that, but I'm not sure that's the connection we want with the American. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Everyone's like, okay, well, then, you blew it.
So listen, I can talk to you forever, and we definitely need to make a 2.0 of that. So if our listeners want to know a little bit more about Jay Ashton and Canada's Restaurant Guy, where can they find more about you?
Obviously on LinkedIn, we're on LinkedIn all the time. YouTube, we have our Canada's Restaurant Guy YouTube channel, or late night restaurant show is on YouTube. We're on Facebook all the time. We're Instagram. We're everywhere. Just Google it. See, actually, it's easier to Google Canada's Restaurant Guy or the late night restaurant show than it is to tell you where to go and where to find us. And if you see anything that says not a podcast, it's typically our show.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm need sure for our contract. I need to make sure I have it on the thing.
Yeah. Make sure you put that on the bottom there.
We don't now where we know you guys with Uncle Bone. Apologies, I should have had it up earlier. And to our listeners, if you haven't done so, make sure you like this episode. Make sure you share it with a friend or listen back, because I honestly believe everybody needs a podcast and everybody needs a book. In order for you to get your message out there to the marketplace. And if you want to know a little bit more about behind the scene glimpses and what we do on updates, join our private communities at disruptivechef.club. We would love to have you. You get a front row seat of all the amazing things we do. So with that, Mr. Jay Ashton, Canada's Restaurant Guy, the Howard Stern of the restaurant industry, are you ready to play what we call Rapid Fire Question Food Service Edition?
Bring it on.
Okay, so the way it works, my team, they very mean people. They give me new questions every week. And
tell me about what it was like when you were 15.
So, they send you the questions ahead of time? No.
Yeah, what's these questions I got?
Okay, briefs or boxes? What is it? Okay, so we have 30 questions. We ask you for a number. You give us the number. We read the question. We want to have an honest answer. You good? We do about 5 questions.
Yeah.
Okay,
great.
Mr. Jay,
So
give me your first.
You couldn't make it easy. I'm Canadian. Come on.
Okay, give me a number between 1 and 30.
1 and 30. Like, why do you pick 30? Like,
I do not know. I honestly do not know. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to pick 29.
29 is a good one.
Oh,
what food do you love experiment with, even though your staff, friends, and families tell you, Jay, you got to stop it?
Tilapia.
1984. The dry colored chips on it.
I get that. Can you stop cooking tilapia? I don't know, but it's great at the air fryer. It's awesome.
Oh, okay. Number between 1 and 30.
1 and 30 again? 28.
28.
We got 30.
How do you see chefs evolving? Are they heading towards culinary rock stars or kitchen robots?
I'm going to say robots. I'll get emails. I'm going to say AI integration as a support tool.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I don't think we'll be around, but I think we'll see AI integration into recipe development, which we see already. Yep. And I think we'll see the chefs get used to using it as a tool, no different than their spatula.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say I'm waiting for the first AI restaurant where you walk in and you wear, a Whoop or an Apple Watch, and the watch will hide.
You got a Whoop too?
Yeah, and where where Whoop will hide the things you're not allowed to eat. And so I'm waiting for that. Okay, next one. Give me a number between 1 and 30.
I don't know why you picked 30. Like, it's hilarious. 15.
Now you have me questioning everything. I'm not sure why we did
No,
that.
like, why 13? Why 15 or 30?
Oh, okay. Number 15. How would you flip a farm to table concept on its head? Literally.
How would you what? Say it again.
How would you flip a farm to table concept on its head? Literally.
How would you farm to table?
How would you flip a farm to table concept on its head?
Did I call a friend?
Not Dominic. I don't think he has your best interest in mind.
Dom, it's so funny because we can call Dom. You know, it's. I have to call a friend on this one. So
you need a lifeline. Okay.
I need a lifeline.
Hold on. You need to play some music.
Right.
Okay.
No. I call it Coach Dominic time. It's not there. So
he's not okay.
He's not there. Yeah, well, he's at a wedding, I think. So probably not.
And he's not answering. He's not that committed. Jay,
I don't know what I would do. I don't know how to flip it upside down. I don't know. I think part of me says we're not going to see that go away, like the farm to table concepts and stuff like this within the. But I think we need a disruption within it because it's becoming like it doesn't disrupt anymore. It doesn't go wow. No one goes, oh, okay. Well, I hope it is. You know, like it's
almost expected. And at a certain level, I would say there's a certain price point. At a certain price point, don't tell me about it. Prove it to me. You know.
Yeah.
So now I'm with you.
Okay. It's got the wow like it used to 20 years ago.
Yeah. Number between 1 and 30. And even 20. Though we're not 100% sure why we did 30. 20 is a good one. How would you redesign a dining experience to make people question their life choices?
Their life choices. Do you write this at night?
No, it's my team.
Do you light a candle and you sit there and go, the weirdest questions in the world?
No. What I do, I sit there, it's dark, and I'm thinking, I visualize there's a straight line from Chicago up to, and I imagine how would it have been if that Al Capone was
in the dark room by yourself and you write, like, we got to talk. So
and then I visualized that he was on the train. And then he went to an Asian restaurant as an Italian guy, so fucking racist, you know, as an Asian restaurant run, you know, I'm sorry. I digress.
What was the question again? Say again.
Number 20 is, how would you redesign a dining experience to make your people question their life choices?
I would make the diners. Okay. Not eat the food. They could order it, but they couldn't.
I would make them cook it themselves.
But I think I've done that before. I've done that where. So I've got a story on that quickly. So we did that once. We're like, well, we'll have them cook for us, and we did, and it wasn't good. So I'm sitting there going, like, what do we tell them now? Like it's horrible. It was like sad. It was like me and my chef were like, oh, I'm like, oh no. What do we do? Horrible. So yeah. So no.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, we don't need a number between 1 and let's say 26, for no apparent reason.
Number 5.
Number 5. Oh, how would you turn fast food into slow down? What the heck is this food?
How would you turn fast food? Did you say fast food?
Yeah. How would you turn fast food into a slow down? What the heck is this food?
I would make, when they ordered it, they'd have to wait for an hour. Right? Because like all the meal was supposed to be fast food, but it'd be an hour. That's what I would do. Like, what is fast?
That is so
Determine
wrong.
fast. What's
That is
fast? It's faster
that
than
is
2 hours.
that is so wrong. That is so wrong. Okay, last question. Between 1 and 20 something.
20 and 20 now.
We
10.
did 20 already. Okay, 10. Okay. When tradition knocks on your kitchen door, do you answer or tell it to fuck off?
Answer. You gotta answer.
Why would you answer when tradition calls?
When tradition calls?
Yep.
When tradition.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? You always answer the door.
We live
We gotta
close
talk
to
with
New York.
your. We gotta work on that. We gotta work on your questions.
We
Like
live
that's
close to
what everybody eat on a
listen,
Sunday night.
we live close to the city. We do not answer the call.
Oh, I get it. I get it. I live in a small
Okay.
town. We have the door.
We want to say thank you to Mr. Jay Ashton for playing a rapid fire question, food service edition.
Thank you.
You did amazing. I'm telling you, my team they're working hard on these questions, and it seems to get harder every week.
Yeah, we'll make a call later about those. I'll give you some tips from the Great North here.
So truth be told, I hear him laugh back there, when they make a question, and then some of it, I was like, really, we can't ask that.
We can't ask that.
So, but no, listen,
Do you remember the top 10 with David Letterman?
Love the top 10 with David Letterman.
Remember the top 10? God, it was the best part of the show.
It was.
It was. I forgot about that until this. This is awesome. Thank you.
So, Jay, let us give us one more, kind of behind the scenes look. What do you do, and where do you see not just podcasting overall? Where's the industry going in restaurant hospitality, and how do you feel people like us, you and I, which do what we do, can support that evolving?
The restaurant industry, I think, is going to, for some reason, my mind is telling me it's going to get simpler because technology is coming in. It's going to be simpler. I think we're going to see the industry also become simpler and more profitable with technology. It has to. Yeah. And I think we're going to see less labor in the restaurants. I think we're going to see less and less of that.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll see none. But I think you're going to see more tech, even now that we see tech huge. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to even see more. I think we're just starting. I think it's going to become, a Tesla of the day, where it's very tech, and it's the only way that you're going to be able to make profitability out of restaurants will be through tech. So I think that's the way. But I think it's also going to be so simple because of the tech to own and operate.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for me, when I look in the future, I think what needs a little overhauling is equipment at large, because we're still cooking on platforms which were developed in the 50s, 60s. I think that needs a little bit of technology and a little bit on R&D. Yeah. But I think it will become more fun being a chef. I also feel that majority of the mise en place can be produced by somebody else, a robotic thing or something consistently, and for a lot less cost. For me, a few weeks ago, now 3 weeks ago, I believe, we were out in Chicago. We were at the IFT, and then we seen some businesses out in St. Louis and Kansas City. And one thing was very apparent, that labor is a bigger struggle out in the Midwest than on the East Coast and West Coast. We went one night, we wanted to have that specific cuisine. We drove all over St. Louis, and we stopped at 6 places. Five of them did not have dine-in. They completely, after COVID, stopped dine-in, only do takeout. And they said they don't care that other people do. They're never going to go back because they don't want to deal with the staff, with the dine-in.
Yeah.
There was one, Jay, and I think you would appreciate it. This guy said, listen, I did two things. Number one, I made every dish $1.50 cheaper. And the second thing is I spent $1 for every person to upgrade my takeout containers. And he says, I'm busier than I ever been. We make more money than we ever have. I have happier customers than I ever had. Do you see that up in Canada with you guys?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think I think survival techniques come into play.
Yeah.
Either you fix the labor problem, which seems like we're not.
Yeah.
And I say a labor problem in it. There's two things to look at it. I don't think we do have a labor problem. I think we have a problem paying people properly, promoting the industry properly, and saying it's a place that you can have a career in.
Yeah.
And when you eliminate all that and you just say it's a job that's going to pay you minimum, it sucks, it's hard, mental illness problems, you're not going to make money at it, then who the heck with the choices of today where you can work wants to work in a restaurant under a hood and an oven and all the heat and all the things? You don't need that nowadays. So I think when you put that into the factor, guess what? Robotics comes in and robotics become cheaper. It's no different than the car and the horse.
Yeah, you spot on.
Right? Like sooner or later we had to get a car because we didn't want the horses too expensive to feed, and it was a lot of work.
Agreed. And then for me, the other thing I learned, 4 out of those 5 restaurants have no intention of fixing the labor problem because they're kind of comfortable in a system which works. And one guy was comfortable enough to tell me, I make more money than I ever did. I'm happier than I ever been. I closed down earlier because he took the other guys in the dining room to clean up another hour. I'm out of here earlier. I mean, he gave me just the benefit of never going back to a dining room.
Yeah, so you just adjust. Okay, well, this restaurant only makes X amount of money potentially this year. Now I make a little less, but is it worth making a little less based on beating yourself up on an extra few $1,000s a year to have an extra person or two on there? Like, I think you're going to see the models change. It has to. It's been 150 years, same model. We buy food, we sell it, and we try to make a profit off of it.
Yep.
And then if we can keep those gauges properly, those profits will go higher or lower, right? So I think you need to look at it like I think Scott Turner said to me on a show a long time ago, is that you need 5 revenue streams into a business today to make it. And you hear that today is most people need to have multiple revenue streams to have a decent living. And I think when you look at that's just it's the evolution, right? Like I think about, when we look at, like the phone world, how many people used to, you have to call and get someone to transfer your call. I never remember this. I'm not that old, but how you had to transfer over to another call or get some, there was a lot of things we had to evolve. So I think we're in probably the evolution side right now of the industry where we're going to evolve to where we have to get to become profitable as soon as. And that's the process you have to go through. You have to go through this where people are like, ooh, AI or robotics. Guess what? In 20 years, I don't think there'll be many people working in drive QSRs that it's not a whole robotic.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. I think they are the only ones which are going to survive. Yeah. Yep.
I think you need to also do that based on the profitability because we know food is not going to drop dramatically in prices because we can't grow it fast enough. The food is not going to go down. Merry Christmas is what it is. But the labor can be adjusted based on technology and being replaced with robotics. So that's your one or most easy variable to shift it, right? Because you don't want to jeopardize the quality of your food, but you can adjust your labor. So you can have more labor on, less labor on, or you can have robotics that aren't a problem and you pay X amount for that, whatever it is, and that's going to get cheaper. So as soon as the robotics become cheaper and people are going, well, because money talks, right, in this industry. So as soon as they realize that robot that can do my kitchen and it costs this much and it's cheaper than a person, hold tight. You're going to see people go. So do you, like I always say, do you go to a QSR for service? You go there to get the food.
I go for speed.
Price,
speed and consistency.
Speed, consistency and a good product,
Mhm.
and you're not going there because they're going to tell you a joke or pull the chair out for you or get your food right. Like those are bonuses, right? But those are not primarily why you go there. You go there for the convenience
Yep.
and the speed and the price points. Well, those equations are really, in a sense, positioned around the labor factor of those equations. So you have to when you adjust that labor part and you make it so it's not a variable, like it's always shows up, it never complains. It's always this much money to run it. This it's the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I get and I run into people that are like, "Why don't like that?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, QSRs are built on a profit machine. Like they're a profitable business. They're built for shareholders to generate profits with a little investment, right? Typically, you'll see QSRs today are owned by groups, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
they're owned by a multiple people. Well, that's because no one can really buy a $300 million business. Very few people can do that. So you can buy a little. So it's kind of like today you can buy paintings with 300 people and you buy a $2 million painting. It's all chunked out.
Yep.
I think you're going to see more and more of that. And based on for that formula to work, you need a good return, or no one's going to want to buy shares in a restaurant.
Yep.
So yeah, robotics, hold tight.
No, totally agreed. And I just realized I made myself a note here. We need to have this become conversation number 2. So with that, Jay, I want to say thanks for being here today. Thanks for giving so freely of the gift of your time. We appreciate you. And for us, we love have these conversations. And for us, you are the North Star. We all want to be like Jay Ashton. Maybe someday I become I don't know. The
We'll get you not a podcast one day.
I would like to be the Seinfeld of the hospitality industry. But Jay, I really appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your partnership. Thanks for doing what you do, and thanks for coming on today. So before we sign off, any last words of wisdom for our listeners?
Don't get questions from Christian.
Yeah.
Don't get questions from Christian. Made for your show.
You better have your shit together, because this ain't easy. This isn't easy, because otherwise, if you would make it easy, everybody has a podcast, and we are not. As the disclaimer said from our lawyers earlier, this is not a podcast, because we have the Howard Stern of the restaurant industry with us. Jay, thanks for being here. And to our listeners, if you haven't done so, make sure you like this episode, share it with a friend. Make sure you sign up for the Disruptive Chef Club, our private community, so you get a little bit more glimpses on behind the scene, what's going on. You get all the updates of new episodes. And we also do some cool trainings for free and some cool updates. So with that, until next time, remember to disrupt your kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry for change. I'm Christian, the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur host. I'm signing off. Me and Jay, we are out of here. So for you guys, be the change, be the challenge, and be the chef who sets the world on fire. Jay, thanks for being here. And to our listeners, get out there, be disruptive. And hopefully over the next week or two, we need to come back and do another episode together. Jay, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.